Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's lovely to see you. For this fall art and sip, we're going to be doing our signature drink here. But before that, I'd like to say that you might have seen some of my work in the indoor pool. So I did that fun mural of a seascape. Now, I guess we're going to get into our signature drink. All right, here are all of our supplies.
Yummy.
We have our cinnamon stick, our orange zest, some whiskey, orange juice, some sparkling water, and 2 orange slices. So to begin, I don't have a mixer, so I'm going to use this mason jar.
That works just as great.
Yeah, I'm going to break up some cinnamon stick. Into my mason jar. And then I'm going to zest this orange right here. Cinnamon, and now I'm going to muddle that with this fancy spoon. So just 1 ounce of orange juice I think will be good. And I'm also going to add some ice because I want it nice and cold. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Okay, then we're going to add our whiskey. You can omit this, or you can keep it in there. And then some soda water to top it off, depending how much or how strong you want that. I think I'm gonna need a little bit more water than normal. All right, and I'm gonna put the top on and mix it up. Ooh, and a strainer to keep the ice out. I think I'm gonna be fancy and stick that cinnamon stick in there and an orange wedge for garnish.
Now you got to try it though too.
Okay. Oh yeah. Very fun and festive.
Fun and festive. I love it. Perfect.
And we're going to go to the painting area. Too early to drink.
5 o'clock somewhere.
Okay. Welcome to my painting station. Okay, and here we have all of our supplies all set up already. This is the image that we're going to be painting today. This is our sample. Some of you may have it if you got the packet. If not, you can always look back here and see, or ask if you have any questions. The supplies in the supply kit we got all of these beautiful brushes that we're going to be using. It also comes with some paints, primaries, some green and black and white. So if you didn't get a kit, these are the colors that we're going to be using today. So we're going to do a green, blue, yellow, red, and a black and white. Also, what is important is a nice glass of water to rinse your dirty brush off in. And I like to use a rag or a paper towel for my brushes, or if I need some cleanup. And this little palette is going to be where we're going to put all of our paint. We have our canvas. And if you guys are ready, we can start.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll take a sip first. So we're going to go ahead and take our paint and put it in every other spot. So we have some extra areas for mixing. Some green. Blue. Some red. Whoop. I had a little spill. I might have a few of those. And some yellow. Now, there is no brown in the kit, but we will be mixing that, and I will help you do that. See, I'm already using my rag for spills. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start using take our big brush, the biggest one in the kit. If you have a larger one at home, that will work also. I always like to start with a wet brush. So I'm gonna dip it in the water. I always like to use my rag to take off a little extra water. And from here, you can see in the sample image, if you want me to get closer, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna start off with the background first. So we're gonna lay that in, and then we're also gonna get this table in, the perspective and all that. And then from there, we will move on to the pumpkin and the beautiful sunflower. So from here, I'm gonna go into my white, and I like this big middle center part of the palette for mixing all of my current colors that I'm gonna be using on the board. So in order to get brown, we are going to mix our primary colors. A dollop of yellow, some red, and some blue. And we're gonna mix those all together and then add lots of white. And from there, we will be able to see how we can get some brown. You want equal parts. Now we're just gonna coat the canvas. Ooh, these paints are getting in my way, so I'm gonna knock them down. All right, now to me, this is looking a little purple. And the best way to achieve colors that you want, if you see it's not the precise color, always go for the opposite of what you want. So this is a little too purple for me. So the opposite of purple is yellow. So I'm going to dip my brush in the yellow. And I also want a little bit more white. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add in the yellow. Coating the entire canvas. Stroke by stroke, I'm working my way over to the other edge of the canvas. Nice up and down strokes to get that wood grain feel. Now I ran out of paint, so I'm gonna have to do the dollops again of my primary colors. Red, blue, yellow. Mix. And extra white. Ooh, there's brown. Water helps too, especially for the first coat. Keeps it nice and fluid so you can keep working it. So before this dries over on this side, I'd like to add a little bit more white. So I'm gonna go in with my brush, my watery brush, and just add some extra white streaks in there. Get all the tones. Don't worry so much about the bottom because we're gonna go ahead and put that brown table in there after. More white. And more water. Okay, now we've coated our entire canvas with a base coat. Concentrating mostly on the top area because that's going to be our finished section. Adding some extra white streaks. All right. Now we're going to make some orange. Now to make orange, we want to add red and yellow, equal parts. I like to use one of those extra little palette holes that we reserved. I'm going to put in some more yellow. I want it to be a nice pumpkin-y color, which is more yellow than red. Red is a strong color, so you only need a little bit. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect because we can always go back and touch up anything we need to. So, whoop. From here, I like to kind of measure out where I want my things. So the pumpkin, the bottom of the pumpkin is going to be here. The top of the pumpkin is going to be there. It's going to come about here. So I'm going to make my rounded edge. There's my pumpkin outline. And if you've ever looked at a pumpkin, it has these fat little sections. So if you sweep your brush from the top to the bottom, it will give you the contrast and contour of the pumpkin. All right, and from here, I want to make it darker. The pumpkin is mostly darkest on the bottom. You can see here is where there's a highlight. So we're going to do that. If I was daring, I'd use a little bit of red to really make it pop. Extra red in that orange to make it nice and deep. Accentuate those little fat parts of the pumpkin. So I'm still using my largest brush, and I will be using that for the majority of the painting, just because I like to get full coverage. Okay, and from here, we can mix some more brown because we're gonna need to fill in that pumpkin stem. So again, to get brown, we wanna do equal parts of all of the primaries, which is, I already have red and yellow on my brush, which is orange, and all I need is a little bit of blue. So if I want a dark brown, we're gonna go for no white, but we want an intermediate brown, which just needs a little bit of white. I am going to, I might even use a touch of black just to spice it up, punch up that nice dark stem. All right, so I'm gonna go for a circle up here. And then bring it right down to the middle. Of the pumpkin. I'm gonna clean my brush off. And now I'd like to work on the sunflower. Because I still have some brown, so I'm going to use all that up to do the interior of the sunflower. All right, and that sunflower sits a little bit lower than the bottom of the pumpkin. So I'm going to go right here, make my marks. And I think I'll switch brushes. I'll use this nice round one. So I'll wash my big brush off.
April, can you repeat how you make brown?
Yes. To make brown, we want yellow, red, and blue. Our primary colors, we mix equal parts. And if you want a light brown, then we'll add white. And if you want a dark brown, you can add just a tiny, tiny bit of black. And from there, you gauge where you want your brown to go. If you want it a little bit more red, you add a tad bit of red. But most likely, it's equal parts, and that will get you a nice brown.
Thanks, April.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, now let's make a little bit more brown. Equal parts red, blue, and yellow. This one's a little bit too purple, so I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. Okay, and this sunflower, the darkest areas are on the edges. So we want to make a nice circle with a stipple effect. And keep our darkest brown on the edges. And then we're going to use a yellow brown from here over. So I'm just going to be using those oranges that we mixed earlier. A little red. And mix all those in there together. Make a nice circle so it reads well. So keeping the darkest in the shape of a C. And then from the C, move inward and get lighter and lighter as you go towards this highlight because our light source is here, casting light onto everything we have here. So naturally, everything on the right is going to be a little bit lighter than the stuff on the left. So I'm just going to add a tad bit more red because this brown I want to read as a nice warm brown. all those little sunflower seeds will read from that stipple effect. And then you can even go in with some black mixed into the brown. To really get that shadow, to feel the depth of that sunflower. All right, now we're gonna wash our brush. I like to always wipe it clean. All right, and now we can start with the beautiful petals. So I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow, so I have enough. And a little bit more white, because I ran out. Another good reason to have a rag. Okay, so I'm gonna go back with my favorite big brush, which is the biggest brush in the packet. I like to always wet my bristles and then go right in there to that yellow. And my palette, from dipping so many different colors into it, is mixed with a little bit of red. That's okay. So I'm just gonna mix it all together, make it a nice, strong, warm yellow. I don't like my brush too coated. I still like to have some bristles here showing, so I don't ever let the paint go too far onto the brush. All right, now back to our canvas. I'd say about 1.5 inches is a good size for our petals. So almost like an A shape, and tapering it back in the inside. I'm gonna make a bunch of little petals. Now this is getting lost on the page, so I'm gonna add white. I'm gonna go in with all my petals and do a white first. That just pops it up so much more. And then we can go in later and add extra yellow. So white, yellow, mix. Place all those beautiful yellow petals on that sunflower. Now when we get to the bottom, you can see here that the sunflower is laying on the table. So it's getting a little bit smushed here. So to get that effect, we want to go on top of the center of the sunflower that we made. Just a little bit lower. So we put that in perspective. So it looks like it's coming towards us. And then again here. And again here. You want to make sure that the petals stay in a nice, even circle around. You don't want one petal longer than the other, except for at the bottom. So if you're having problems over here getting full coverage over your pumpkin, just go in with white first, and then you can go over again with yellow after it's dried. Ooh, my petals are getting a little long there. So I want to calculate, fix all those ones that are a little too short. Recalculate. Again with my white and then into my yellow. So sunflowers, the petals are kind of smushed when they come out of the center. So to get that look, it's nice to have your dark yellow, and then you put two little lines coming out of the base of the petal, and that helps accentuate that. And if you want, you can even add a touch of orange into your yellow, and it will make it even brighter and deeper, giving it a little bit of color contrast. So to make sure that you're always getting the best picture, always refer to your sample. And step back and take a look and see where you are, what you've done, and where you need to go. So I feel like these are getting a little smushed. Maybe they need to get a little longer. They definitely need a highlight. And we need to start working on our shadow down here. So I'm going to go back with my big brush, wash it off, wipe it on the rag. into my white. And I'm going to highlight all of these petals. And that will help bring it to life. Regardless of the shape, highlights always make everything appear more realistic. How's everybody doing? Good?
Yeah, I don't have any questions coming through.
Great. So this one on the bottom that's in perspective, it's going to be really white because it's getting all of that light. It's sitting flat. And then with my white, I'm going to go ahead and hit the inside of the flower gently. I might go over it with my finger because I don't want it too aggressive. Just put a nice highlight on it. All right. Now with my white, since I still have it on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the pumpkin. Some areas at the top. And all of this is in light. So I'm going to give this nice brush of white. Dry brush helps. It's just subtle enough. To give it texture. This is where it's getting the most light. So it's going to be the strongest and the thickest. A little reflective here on the bottom to give it shape. Okay, and I can go ahead and wash my brush off. What would be fun is to add a little bit of yellow orange, not a lot, just a little bit, right here on this pumpkin. I'm seeing some yellow. Just to break up the color so it's not a blob of orange. All right, disperse that. Now from here, let's add our detail. So our detail is mostly going to be in very dark colors. If we look here on our sample, this is a very dark color. So we're going to add all of that in, and we're also going to add in the wood graining in our background. So again, we're going to mix some brown. Brown is equal parts of the primary colors. Yellow, red, and blue. Right in the center of our palette. We're going to mix our brown. I'm going to add a little bit of black, a tiny bit, just the corner of our brush. So we don't want it too dark. All right, clean off our brush and get it nice and pointy. Here's where we're going to start our detailing. All right. So to get our table, so it doesn't look like our pumpkin and our sunflower are just floating in the air, we're going to try and make it even on both sides. So we're going to get our line there, right here. From there, we can add in our table. So I'm going to go into the white and water right into the middle of our brush, our palette. And you can just fill in that table. Don't get too close to the pumpkin. You don't want to cover him up. I like to add water. It makes nice fluid paint. Wash my brush off, and I want to kind of blend from the bottom up because I don't want to ruin all the stuff that I've already painted. Almost like a nice water coat all the way up to the top. So blending all of that bottom brown that we just put on there, blending it to the top so it's almost ombre. A nice blend all the way across. Okay. So now it looks like it's not floating in the air, and now we're going to do some shadow. So we're going to go back into our brown. And add all of the shadow into this pumpkin. I always like my shadows a little bit more purple to give it a nice depth. Purple is a cool tone. Shadows are cool. So we want to angle our brush on the horizontal, and from there almost stipple it out from the edge of the pumpkin. You might want to give the pumpkin an edge, and then from there work your way out. But just shadow that big guy. It'll make it feel nice and heavy. Give it some weight. All right, now we're also going to do the same to the sunflower. The sunflower isn't as heavy, so we're going to be a little bit more delicate. Shadowing in between the petals. Staying on that horizontal line will help it feel like it's on the table. A little heavier here. I feel like it needs it. All right. I think we can move on to some wood graining. I'm still using my big favorite brush.
April, somebody asked, could you have done the table before adding the pumpkin and sunflower?
Yeah, you can, but there's really not that much. It's just really a shadow.
That's fair.
So yeah, you could have if you wanted to. Usually the background is done before the foreground, but in this instance, because it's mostly just detail, I felt like we could just detail everything all together as one. So now we're gonna go, we detailed the bottom and the shadow. Now we're gonna go ahead and detail from top to bottom, wood grain and the pumpkin. But yeah, you could definitely detail the whole entire back and then build up from there.
All good.
Normally that's how I like to do it, but I wasn't sure how we would be for time. So I figured we could just detail everything at once.
Yeah, we're doing great on time right now. Everything's good.
Okay, good. Ooh. All right, so I'm still sticking with my big brush. And I'm gonna go into my brown. And I want it to be a little bit more dry so it gets a really rough texture. And I want to do vertical lines now in about 3-inch sections. And you don't want to be too precise. Wood is very organic, so you want to have a thick and then a thin line, so it's not too perfect. And this you can have a little fun with. It's not exact, it's wood. It's very organic, like I said, and you can be very free as long as you stay horizontal. I'm vertical. So I like to place my planks in there. Looks about right. And then from there you can add some knots. You can even add in some different colors with a dry brush. If something's too harsh, I always love to add water and just blend it. Feeling like I'm going to add a little bit of blue. And some random spots to spice it up. And then I wet my brush. Just blend it in. Just a hint of color. I might do that with some red too. Just very faint suggestions of color. Give it that fall look. All right, now back to my wood graining. See a knot here. Too much paint on my brush, so I want it to be a little drier. Make it really rustic. Keep the vertical lines going. Break them up a little bit. come up from the sunflower and from the pumpkin. It really pushes the background back. If you can touch the edge of the pumpkin and the sunflower. And don't forget to get that little corner. That will help push the background back. Make it look like we did it ahead of time. Also, some little dots I think help. Make it look a little rustic. Okay, and from there, I think we can do a little bit more detail. Moving on to the sunflower. Now, if our light source is at the top of the pumpkin, our shadows are going to be on the bottom left. So everything on the bottom left is going to get a nice shadow, and that will help everything get a little bit more grounded. Clean this up right there. Give it a nice hard edge. You can even go in and hit these little sections in between. And now for the pumpkin. Shape him out a little bit, pulling from the bottom up, curving your wrist. And then you can pull some down from the top of the pumpkin. Now we can go into our green and add that extra leaf and those curly little lines that pumpkins are known for. Ground this right here. Wash my brush. Finally dip into that green. It's very bright, so I'm going to add a little bit of brown and a little bit of white. So it doesn't look like a Ninja Turtle. Yes, brings all of our fall colors together. a nice organic shape. And then giving it a little shadow. So I'm going to dip it into my brown because black is a little harsh. So I'm going to follow the top edge with the darker color. Then I'm going to wash my brush and get a nice skinny pointed brush so I can do those swirls. I think this one is appropriate. So from there, I'm going to wet my brush, dip it in the green, dip it in the brown, just to darken it up a tad. Maybe even into the white, just a little bit, so I can get a nice dirty green. All right, and our sample picture has 4 spirals coming out of the middle. So let's go for those. Spirals because pumpkins are on a vine. So I feel like my leaf needs a highlight. Just a little flat for me. I feel like it also might need a shadow. So I'm going to go back to my big brush, my favorite one, and I'm going to dip it in that dark brown that we've been putting in the middle of our palette. And I'm just going to outline that leaf a little bit. I'm also going to add a tad bit of black. And I just want to ground that leaf a little bit to make it look like it's sitting on top. And attach it to the stem. I always like to use my finger to blend. All right. Feel free to step back and evaluate what you have going on to see where you need to improve, things that you don't like, or things that you do like and you want to add more of. So for me, this leaf needs, there we go, some definition. I also want to add a little highlight onto those spirals. So not a straight white, but a light green. And just hit the tops, the edges, to make them look three-dimensional. And they'll also help reinforce your light source. So now that my painting is dry for the most part, I feel like I need to add a little bit more highlight into my sunflower. So I'm going to go back with my white and a smaller brush. Just to pull a few of those petals out and make them pop. Give them some definition, some detail. Yeah, those bottom leaves of the sunflower are catching a lot of light. So as I'm painting, I'm always referring to my sample. I'm looking at my painting, I'm doing a stroke, I look back at my sample to evaluate, and then I go back to my painting, I do a stroke. So that white really pops those leaves right out. And if it's too much for you, you can always go back in with a little yellow to soften it out if you feel like it's just too rough or hard. A dry brush is a nice subtle way to add a little bit of color. Now I'm just going to go back in with a little bit of yellow and pop that sunflower back up. In some areas. Really make her bright. Oop, got a little bit of blue there. So you just want to go here and there. You don't want to coat the whole entire leaf. Just a suggestion on each petal. All right. How's everybody doing out there? Wow!
Very nice.
Beautiful!
I didn't finish, but.
It was so much fun.
This is great. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
very
you so
much.
much.
I really needed this.
Oh, good. Good, good, good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
April.
you.